We are joined right now, ladies and gentlemen, as he sits down. I shake his hand once again. Good to see Governor George Pataki. Hello, sir.
Good being with you, Steve. How are you?
Well, I'm fine. Thanks for stopping by. I appreciate that. I want to play a video for you. This will be 25, which you could watch. It's you. Just maybe you tell me when you see it. You were walking around with Bill Hemmer, then of Fox News. He's now on CNN. I'm sorry, then of CNN. He's now on Fox News.
He's on Fox,
and you were just giving him basically a tour of the destruction at Ground Zero. Let's roll cut 25, please.
You see what used to be. That's what's left of the South Tower. That was 104, 106 stories tall.
Yeah,
and it's just
I'm calling.
Incredible, just incredible. And up there would be the North Tower, and it's like a scene out of a horror movie, you know, after the nuclear bombs have struck. But it's not a movie. Now these guys are not extras in a movie. This is what actually happened, and it's just it's incredible. And you can see it's still burning, still smoldering. How are you? We're proud of you guys.
Thank you. We're proud of you too, sir.
We're proud of you. God bless you. Thank you.
All right. So you were telling him how, of course, it's like a scene out of a horror movie, but it's not a movie. And then at the end, some firefighters said, "We're proud of you," and you said it back to them, and then you said, "God bless you." But what do you remember about, first of all, that day? Where were you on the day of 9/11?
I was in the city, and you know, I'm from upstate. I didn't stay in the city that often, but that night I just happened to. I had something going on. And my daughter called me. She was working at Bloomberg News on the early shift. And she called up and said, "Dad, do you have your TV on?" And I go, "No." And she goes, "Well, turn it on." A plane hit the tower. And I remember just looking out the window. It was the most magnificent, beautiful, clear day. Turning on the TV, and she was rattled. So I was talking to her and saying, you know, we're going to be fine. It was probably just some horrible mistake. And then I saw the second plane hit. And then right away, I knew and the whole world knew that we were being attacked. This wasn't an accident. This wasn't some horrible mistake. It was a conscious effort to attack the United States of America.
And what did the governor of New York do next?
Well, we just sprung into action. You know, I talked to President Bush very early after that. I called him in Florida, asked him to shut down the airspace, because one of the concerns we had is what was going to happen next. You just didn't know if this was a series of attacks that were ending or if it was going to continue. So he had already shut down the airspace over the entire country. I talked with Mayor Giuliani, and then for the next 5 hours I couldn't talk to him because he was trapped in a building, and I had to deal with his deputy mayor. But instantaneously you mobilized the state's emergency response team. We had an unbelievably effective team, and calling up the National Guard, protecting the bridges and tunnels and the airports, activating the emergency fire and health response system, and just working as hard as we could, consistent with the efforts of the city and the feds to first of all, try to save lives.
Yeah, and of course, the so few survivors, if any, because of the horrific way
Steve,
in which they died.
I'll tell you, that's one of the endearing and lasting memories in my mind. Is that morning I walked down around Ground Zero just to try to buoy people's spirits, and I came to St. Luke's Hospital, and outside on the street were nurses, orderlies, doctors with dozens and dozens of gurneys waiting for the injured, and they didn't come. Because tragically, when the towers came down, except for a handful of miraculous stories, they're just we lost too many people that day.
Absolutely. Mayor Giuliani called it one of the most, trying, horrific days of his life. I mean, agree with that?
Yeah, there's no question. You were trying to deal with enormous human loss, the uncertainty and the fear about the future, the need to desperately mobilize every resource we had to try to help people, and at the same time learning of all your friends who had been killed. And the Port Authority is a agency of joint state, New York, New Jersey, and most of the top officials were friends of mine who I had put there. And sadly, virtually all of them were killed that day. And you just, as you were going through this horrific effort to try to protect the city, save lives, and instill confidence that we were going to be okay, you were learning the names of your friends who had died. And you just, it was very hard, but you just would set it aside and say, this is awful. This is not the time to grieve. We can grieve later.
Can you believe it's been 12 years?
You know, on a day like this today, it seems like yesterday.
Yeah.
There are other times when it seems like it was a lifetime ago. You know, but it will always be there, and not just for me, for you, for all of us who witnessed it that day, either in person or as the whole world did watching on television. That will always be a sad day in our lives that we won't forget.
We're talking to former New York Governor George Pataki here on the Steve Malzberg Show. Police Commissioner Kelly has said that the threat of terrorism today is great, if not greater, than it was pre-9/11. You agree?
There's no question that Al-Qaeda is not on the run. Al-Qaeda has morphed into an extraordinarily dangerous global enterprise. And we need to continue to be proactive, both here at home and overseas, to do everything we can to protect ourselves. And Commissioner Kelly and the NYPD have done an extraordinary job, and I fear that whether it's in Washington, where they refuse to use the term war on terror, or here in the city, where I'm concerned that the next mayor won't have that same commitment to public safety that we've had for the last literally now 20 years.
Well, let's talk about, of course, the primaries were yesterday. The Democratic candidate, we don't know yet if there'll be a runoff. It's very close, but it looks like he got the 40%. Bill de Blasio, who was very far to the left and who has attacked NYPD along with all the other candidates on the left there.
Yeah.
And of course on the Republican side, the gentleman that you were supporting, Mr. Catsimatidis, did not survive. It was the former deputy mayor under Rudy Giuliani, Joe Lhota, who is going to be the Republican nominee. Size up that race and talk about what might happen if a de Blasio or a Thompson were to become mayor.
Well, Steve, it's September 11th, and much as I hate to do this is just not, I obviously have very strong political feelings.
Well, on the police issue that you brought up.
On the police issue, apart from the politics, we have had...
Which is what I meant.
Absolutely. Under Ray Kelly, we've had extraordinarily strong, aggressive policing that has made this city safer than it's ever been. And we have a confluence of events now. For the last 6 years, we've seen a weakening of the criminal justice laws in Albany. We changed, when I was governor, hundreds of laws, sentencing laws, evidentiary laws, hearing and procedural laws. We changed the judges to make them understand that it wasn't their job to find a loophole to free a defendant, but to uphold the principle of the law. We changed parole and probation. That had been changed after I left, and now I fear that we're going to have a mayor who just doesn't understand that this isn't anything but about protecting the most vulnerable New Yorkers. And what this city, to its credit, under Mike Bloomberg has done is aggressively patrol in the poorest, highest crime neighborhoods where there are, sadly, a disproportionate number of minorities. And because of that, you can make an absurd case that the police are too aggressive in the minority communities. But contrast it to Chicago, where in the south of Chicago, you have dozens of murders weekend after weekend of young African Americans being killed because they don't use the aggressive police tactics.
And who's being killed? It's the minorities.
It's the minorities.
And the minorities who were being killed in this city.
That's exactly right. And so I fear that the next administration isn't going to understand that this is about public safety and protecting the most vulnerable, generally the poorest, the minorities, those living in the poorest communities.
But to Ray Kelly's statement today about a possible attack, he's also instituted basically his own mini FBI, if you will, and of course his tactics became public, monitoring various groups, both here and in other states. And now every mayoral candidate on the Democratic side, and especially Thompson, has said that will stop. There will be no surveillance of Muslims or whatever. So that whole anti-terror program is in jeopardy too.
And it's very scary because the anti-terror thing has worked as well. And we know that whether it was the Times Square bomber who fortunately was caught, or other efforts that have been thwarted, the subway use of poison gas, that this police department has done an excellent job, not just in street crime, but also in proactively examining the threats of terror against the people of New York and working to prevent those from happening. And sometimes, and it's 12 years later, people just take it for granted. Oh, we're safe. we don't have to worry. That's just not the case. It's 12 years after September 11th. It's 1 year after Benghazi. And there are still those out there, here and abroad, who want to attack us again. And if they have the opportunity, will.
I know politics aside, I know it's 9/11, and we both respect that, and some people don't. But I will ask you, I mean, you speak like a man who has convictions and passion, as you always did. And I've asked you this in the past, I'll ask you now. Presidential aspirations, more political aspirations?
It is not for today,
Okay.
But I do believe we need a dramatic change in direction in Washington. It's certainly on the security issues. It's just so sad to see this great country that should be a leader in the battle for human rights and freedom being completely outmaneuvered by Vladimir Putin and making him look like the statesman of the 21st century, when we know that's certainly not the case. But this is the time to remember those we lost, to really honor those who responded with such courage, to honor those who are on the front lines today, our military and our first responders, our police and our firefighters and our EMTs. They do the job every day. This is a day in particular where we should remember and thank them.
Absolutely. Well said, Governor. Thank you very much. Great
Thank
seeing
you,
you.
Steve. Very good being
Governor,
with you.
Thank you. Governor George Pataki, ladies and gentlemen. 855-777-9660. I'll be here to take your calls, and we will continue right here on the 12th anniversary of 9/11.